There are fewer than 5 verified photographs of him in existence. For over a decade, he was the most wanted man in Mexico. The United States government offered $15 million for information leading to his capture, one of the highest bounties ever placed on a criminal. He commanded an army of 5,000. He controlled drug routes across 3 continents. His cartel became synonymous with a new generation of violence that even hardened law enforcement called unprecedented. And yet most people would not recognize his face. His name was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, but the world knew him by another name, El Mencho, the Ghost. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes was born on July 17, 1966, in the rural mountains of Michoacán, Mexico. Born into poverty in the state of Michoacán, El Mencho grew avocados and dropped out of primary school in a region where opportunities were scarce and survival was difficult. His family worked small plots of land in Tierra Caliente, the hot land, a region that had long been associated with marijuana cultivation and smuggling routes dating back generations. By the time Nemesio was in his early 20s, there was little future visible in those mountains. Like thousands of others, he looked north. He immigrated illegally to the United States, settling in California, where he worked low-wage jobs and tried to build something resembling a life. But in 1992, that life ended. He was arrested on heroin trafficking charges. After serving 3 years in a federal prison, he was deported back to Mexico. It was supposed to be the end of his story. Instead, it was the beginning. When Nemesio Oseguera returned to Mexico in the mid-1990s, he returned to a country being carved apart by cartels. The old guard, organizations like the Guadalajara cartel, had splintered. New groups were forming alliances, fighting for territory, building empires on cocaine and methamphetamine. Oseguera joined one of these groups, the Milenio Cartel, a trafficking organization based in Michoacán and Jalisco. He worked in a group of hitmen that protected Armando Valencia Cornelio, and later joined a block of the Milenio Cartel, allied with Ignacio Coronel Villarreal, a Sinaloa cartel capo. For years, Oseguera operated in the shadows. Enforcement, logistics, violence. He was competent, disciplined. He learned the business from the inside. But by 2010, everything changed. The leader of the Milenio Cartel was captured. Ignacio Coronel was killed in a military operation. The organization fractured into rival factions, some aligned with Sinaloa, others declaring independence. And in that chaos, Nemesio Oseguera saw an opportunity. He gathered loyal fighters, he formed alliances with financial operators, and he declared war on everyone who stood in his way. He called his new organization the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. What set El Mencho's cartel apart from the beginning was not just ambition, it was methodology. CJNG became synonymous with rapid expansion and overt displays of force. The cartel gained notoriety for its militarized tactics. They wore tactical uniforms. They used armored vehicles. They deployed rocket launchers and heavy weapons rarely seen outside of war zones. They released propaganda videos showing convoys of armed fighters, dozens of trucks, hundreds of men, as a message to rivals and authorities alike. In 2015, authorities have linked the CJNG to high-profile attacks on Mexican security forces, including ambushes, coordinated assaults, and even the downing of a military helicopter using a rocket-propelled grenade. The message was clear. El Mencho's organization would not hide. They would confront anyone, rival cartels, police, even the military. Under his command, the CJNG became one of Mexico's leading criminal organizations, expanding into states where no cartel had ever established dominance. And through it all, El Mencho himself remained invisible. No public appearances, no interviews, just rumors, ghost stories, and a growing body count. By 2016, the CJNG had become what intelligence analysts called a transnational criminal enterprise. The group has contacts in over 40 countries, including the Americas, as well as in Australia, China, and Southeast Asia. In 2019, the DEA estimated CJNG was responsible for at least 1/3 of all the drugs entering the U.S. from air and sea. They traffic cocaine from South America, methamphetamine produced in clandestine labs across Mexico, and increasingly, fentanyl, the synthetic opioid that was killing Americans by the tens of thousands. But drugs were only part of the operation. The CJNG diversified into extortion, fuel theft, human trafficking, kidnapping. They operated like a corporation, regional managers, financial divisions, enforcement units, and at the center of it all was a man who, by most accounts, never stayed in the same location for more than a few nights. El Mencho moved constantly through the mountains of Jalisco and Michoacán. He traveled with heavy security. He communicated through intermediaries. He trusted almost no one. And for years, that caution kept him alive. While other cartel leaders were captured or killed, El Mencho simply vanished into the landscape. For over a decade, capturing El Mencho was the top priority for U.S. and Mexican law enforcement. The DEA called him the #1 priority for federal law enforcement in the United States. The Mexican government deployed military units specifically tasked with his capture. Rewards escalated. First $5 million, then $10 million, finally $15 million, placing him alongside the most wanted terrorists and fugitives in the world. There were close calls. In 2015, Marines raided a ranch in the mountains after intercepting cell phone signals. They faced heavy gunfire. El Mencho escaped, injured, some reports said, but alive. In 2018, authorities surrounded a compound in rural Jalisco. By the time they breached the doors, he was gone. A tunnel led from the house into the forest. He had learned from the best. El Chapo's escapes, Pablo Escobar's evasions. He combined old strategies with new technology, encrypted communications, counter-surveillance teams, loyal networks who would die before talking. And perhaps most importantly, he had the mountains. The same mountains where he'd grown up, where he knew every path, every safe house, every person who might shelter him. He had become what one DEA agent called a ghost in his own country. El Mencho's rise came at a cost measured in thousands of lives. Under CJNG control, homicide rates in states like Jalisco, Colima, Guanajuato, and Veracruz exploded. Mass graves were discovered in regions where the cartel fought for territory. Journalists, police officers, politicians, anyone who stood in the way, disappeared or turned up dead. The cartel's violence was not just strategic, it was theatrical. Bodies left in public places as warnings, attacks on government buildings, targeted assassinations broadcast on social media. One security analyst described El Mencho's approach as sadism as public spectacle. But perhaps the most devastating impact was silent. Fentanyl. CJNG was accused of masterminding efforts to push fentanyl into the United States. The synthetic opioid, 50 times more potent than heroin, became the leading cause of overdose deaths in America. In 2024 alone, over 100,000 Americans died from drug overdoses, the majority linked to fentanyl. And while El Mencho never appeared in public, never gave interviews, never showed his face, his empire killed more people than any bomb, any bullet, any single act of violence ever could. He had become not just a criminal, but a force of nature, and no one could stop him. When someone becomes invisible for long enough, they stop being a person and become a myth. Rumors about El Mencho circulated constantly. Some said he'd been killed in a firefight and his death covered up by the cartel to maintain fear. Others claimed he died of kidney failure in a hospital, with his identity protected by bribes. In 2022, Messages appeared on walls in Guadalajara claiming El Mencho was dead. His rivals spread the rumors to undermine his authority. The CJNG responded with violence, attacks on rival groups, displays of force that seemed designed to prove he was still very much alive and very much in control. But the truth was, almost no one had seen him in years. Even his closest associates communicated with him through intermediaries. His security detail rotated constantly. His family members were arrested or in hiding. One DEA official admitted, "We're not even sure we'd recognize him if we saw him. He could have had surgery, changed his appearance. The photographs we have are over a decade old." And that was perhaps his greatest weapon. Not guns, not money, not corruption. Uncertainty. In February 2025, the United States government took an unprecedented step. President Donald Trump signed an executive order designating the CJNG, along with 7 other Mexican cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. It was a move that changed the legal landscape entirely. It meant anyone who provided material support to the CJNG could be prosecuted under terrorism statutes. Financial institutions could be sanctioned. Assets could be frozen globally. The U.S. designated CJNG as a terrorist organization in February 2025. For El Mencho, it meant the walls were closing in from every direction. Mexico, under intense pressure from Washington, deployed military resources on a scale never before committed to a single target. U.S. intelligence agencies shared real-time surveillance. Special operations forces coordinated across borders. But even with satellites, drones, informants, and billion-dollar intelligence operations, El Mencho remained a ghost. One investigator admitted, "We've gotten close, more times than I can count, but he's always one step ahead. It's like he knows we're coming before we do." And maybe he did. Because for all the technology, all the resources, all the manpower, he understood something they didn't. The mountains protect their own. Like and subscribe.